February 3rd, 1902, Volume 4. Luisa offers her life so that the law of divorce may not be confirmed. As I was in my usual state, I found myself outside of myself, with my adorable baby Jesus in my arms. First he poured a little bit of what embittered him, and then he made the act of wanting to go. And I, clasping him in my arms, said to him, "My pretty little one, life of my life, what are you doing? You want to go? And what shall I do? Don't you see that when I am without you, it is a continuous dying for me? Besides, your heart, which is goodness itself, will not have the courage to do it, and I will never let you depart." And I clasped him tightly, as if my arms had become chains. Unable to free himself, he remained with me taciturn, and I, seeing the evils of society rage more, said to him, "My sweet good, tell me, what will happen with this divorce that they talk about? Will they come to make this evil law or not?" And he told me, "My daughter, the interior of man contains a gangrenous tumor, filled with rot, as if it had reached the point of suppuration. And unable to contain it within himself any longer, he wants to cut this tumor, but not to be cured, rather to let part of this rot out, so as to contaminate and infect the whole society. But the divine Son, almost swimming in the midst of society, cries out continuously, saying, 'O man, don't you remember from what font of purity you came? With what aura of light I called you back to your path? How can this be? You have not only contaminated yourself, but you want to reach the point of acting against your nature, almost wanting to give another form to the nature I gave you, and to the way established by me.' Then he said many other things which I am unable to say, and he spoke with such bitterness that, unable to endure seeing him in that way, I said, 'Lord, let us withdraw. Don't you see how men embitter you and almost give you no peace?' So we withdrew inside my bed, and wanting to cheer my good Jesus, I said to him, 'Since you would be so afflicted if men should do this, I offer you my life to suffer any pain, in order to obtain that they do not come to this. And so that my offering may not be rejected in any way, I unite it to your sacrifice, in order to obtain the deed of grace with certainty.' While I was saying this, it seemed that the Lord was using my offering to present it to divine justice. He disappeared, and I found myself inside myself. It seems that at any cost men want to confirm at least a few articles of this law, since they are unable to confirm it completely as they want and please. February 3rd, 1912, Volume 10. If in the soul there is no purity, upright working, and love, she cannot be the mirror of Jesus. Continuing in my usual state, my always lovable Jesus came, and, placing his holy hand under my chin, he told me, 'My daughter, you are the reflection of my glory.' Then he added, 'In the world I need mirrors to which to go and look at myself. Only then can a font serve as mirror in which people can reflect themselves, when the font is pure. But it is of no use for the font to be pure, if the waters are cloudy. It is useless for that font to boast about the preciousness of the stones on which it is founded, if the waters are cloudy. Nor can the sun make its rays perpendicular so as to render those waters silvery and communicate to them the variety of colors. Nor can people reflect themselves in it. My daughter, virgin souls are the similes of the purity of that font. The crystal clear and pure waters are the upright working. The sun that makes its rays perpendicular is me. The variety of colors is love. Therefore, if I do not find purity, upright working, and love in a soul, she cannot be my mirror. These are my mirrors in which I make my glory be reflected. With all the others, even if they are virgins, not only can I not reflect myself, but if I wanted to do so, I would not recognize myself in them. And the sign of all this is peace. From this you will be able to know how very scarce are the mirrors I have in the world. In fact, very few are the peaceful souls. February 3rd, 1923, Volume 15, The Two Dying Ones. I felt life missing in me because of the privation of my sweet Jesus, and if he moves in my interior, he makes himself seen inside that horrifying sea of the sins of creatures. Then, unable to endure any more, I was lamenting strongly, and he, as though stirred by my moans, came out of that sea and, clasping me, told me, "My daughter, what's wrong? I heard your laments, the rattle of your agony, and I put everything aside to come to help you and sustain you." My daughter, Patience, we are two poor dying ones, you and I, for the good of humanity. But while we are dying, love sustains us so as not to let us die, to give help to poor humanity, which lies as though dying in the sea of its many sins. And as he was saying this, it seemed that the waves of that sea would submerge the two of us. Who can say what we were suffering? And since in those waves we could see preparations for wars, I said to him, "My life, who knows how long this second turmoil will last? If the first one lasted for so long, what is going to happen with the second, which seems larger?" And Jesus, all afflicted, said to me, "Indeed it will be larger, but it will not last for too long, because I will put my hand into it, and the scourges from heaven will muffle those of the earth. Therefore let us pray, and you never go out of my will." February 3rd, 1927, Volume 20, How in the Kingdom of the Divine Fiat there will be one will alone. How one saying about the divine will can be a key, a door, a path. How the supreme will forms many breasts in all created things, from which to let its children suckle its knowledges. My always lovable Jesus, drawing me all to himself, told me, "My daughter, the kingdom of the divine Fiat will have one single will as its center, the divine. Therefore one will be the will of all, which, diffusing through all and embracing all, will give happiness, order, harmony, strength, and beauty to all. So it will be the kingdom of one single will, one will for all, and all for one will. What renders the celestial fatherland happy if not the will of God and the will of all? Oh, if another will, different from that of God, could enter heaven, which cannot be, the saints would lose their perennial peace and would feel the disorder of a will which is not divine, which does not contain all goods, and which is not holy and bearer of happiness and peace. Therefore unanimously they would all cast it out. So the kingdom of the Fiat will have only my will, and my will alone, as law, as regime, as dominion, and by virtue of it, all will be happy, of one single happiness. There will never be disputes, but perennial peace." After this, and feeling the great effort I was making in writing, and the hardship I experienced, I felt undecided whether I should continue to write or not. And my beloved Jesus, inciting me, told me, "My daughter, each additional word about my will can be one more key in order to open the kingdom of the supreme Fiat. Each knowledge about it can be a new door that forms to give more ease, more entrances, to let the children of its kingdom enter. Each simile about my will is one more path that forms, in order to facilitate the communications of this kingdom. The most tiny thing that regards my fiat is a heartbeat of it, which it wants to form in the midst of the children of its kingdom. And to suffocate this heartbeat, my daughter, is not appropriate. This heartbeat will bring new and divine life, bilocated from this heartbeat, to be enjoyed by those who will have the fortune to possess this kingdom. Do you not know that to be able to say that a kingdom exists, first it is necessary to form it and then say it exists? Therefore it is necessary to form the paths, the security doors, the keys of gold, not forged with some other metal, in order to facilitate the entrance into the kingdom of my will. One path less, one missing key, one locked door, can render the entrance into it more difficult and less comfortable. Therefore everything I say to you serves not only to form this kingdom, but also to facilitate those who will want to possess it. So the firstborn daughter of my will must have the care of rendering that which regards the kingdom of the eternal fiat easier. Then I was continuing my acts in the supreme volition, and finding myself outside of myself, I went around the whole creation to follow the divine will in each created thing. But while I was doing this, the veil of each created thing was torn, and I could see the holy will dwelling in them, doing each act which each created thing contains, always operating, without ever stopping. And my sweet Jesus coming out from within my interior told me, "My daughter, look at the exuberant love of my will, always stable, always operating, always in the act of giving, without ever drawing back from what it established to do when the supreme fiat echoed in the creation. My will took on the commitment to perform all arts, to carry out all offices, to execute all servitudes, to take on any shape in order to make man happy. Even more, it acted as more than a most tender mother, disposing all created things almost like many breasts within which it hid, to let itself be suckled by man. So it became sun to let man suckle its light. It became heaven to let him suckle the vital love of immutability. It became stars to let him suckle the variety of goods with which its works contain. It became water, plants, and flowers to let him suckle the water of grace, quenching his thirst, and to let him suckle its sweetness and its chaste fragrances. My will took on all shapes, of bird, of lamb, of dove, in sum, of everything, in order to reach the mouth of man and let itself be suckled by him, to give him the good which each created thing contained. Only a divine will which created everything in an outpouring of its love could take on so many shapes, perform so many offices, be so persistent, without ever ceasing to do its acts. Yet who tries to penetrate into each created thing, to see who is the one who offers its breast to him, to give its milk, to breastfeed the creatures, to amuse them and to make them happy? Almost no one. My will pours itself out continuously. It gives its life in each created thing in order to give life, and they do not deign even to look at it, to see who is the one who loves them so much, and is life of their life. Therefore the sorrow of my will is great, because of so many denials from the creatures. So with divine and invincible patience, it is waiting for its children who, by knowing it, may tear the veil from created things which hide it, may recognize the breast of their mamma, and grateful may suckle from those divine breasts as her true children. And so the glory of all creation, of all redemption, of your Jesus and of the eternal fiat will then be complete, when the children of its kingdom will attach themselves to its breast, to suckle from its breasts. Recognizing it, they will not detach from its breast, and it will give them all goods, and will have the glory, the contentment, to see all of its children happy, while these children will have the honor, the glory, to copy within themselves the mother, who with so much love keeps them on her lap to nourish them with her divine milk. Now my will finds itself in the conditions of the sun, when the clouds prevent the fullness of its light from investing the earth with all its vividness. So because of the clouds, the sun cannot display all of the light it contains, as if the clouds would hinder the glory of the sun from giving course to its light, always the same, always fixed, as it indeed gives it. In the same way the clouds of the human will hinder the whole course which the sun of my will would want to take toward them. And since it cannot communicate all the goods it contains, either through creation or directly, its glory is intercepted by the clouds of the human will. But when they will know the supreme Fiat, and will give themselves as its children, these clouds will be removed, and my will be able to give the goods it contains. Then will our glory be complete in the midst of creatures. February 3rd, 1929, Volume 25. To recognize creation and redemption is to recognize the divine dominion. Tight bonds that exist between heaven and one who lives in the divine will, and how one who lives in it is all one piece. My poor and little mind swims in the most bitter sea of the privation of my sweet Jesus, and feeling I am almost without him, more than ever I feel like longing for my celestial fatherland. Oh, how bitter is the earth without Jesus! Together with him it is more bearable, but without him one cannot live at all. And if it wasn't for the fact that close to the sea of his privation flows, more extensive, the sea of the divine Fiat that, with its light, eases in part the bitterness and the intensity of the pain of the privation of Jesus, who knows how long ago I would have taken flight to the celestial regions because of the force of the pain. But Fiat. So I was continuing my round in the creation and redemption, recalling within my mind all the acts done by God in order to follow them, giving for each act homages, adoration, love, thanksgiving. And my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, by recalling the acts of creation and redemption in order to follow them and honor them and know them, the creature does nothing but recognize the divine dominion in all things, and my divine will feels itself being given its honors, the homages due to it, and drawn, it forms there its kingdom in the midst of creatures." After this I felt I could not go on any longer without Jesus. My strengths were failing me. I was so disheartened that if my interior pains could be seen, I would have caused heaven and earth to cry out of pity. But I believe that just as the divine Fiat eclipses my sweet Jesus from me with its light, so does it eclipse my pains, in such a way that no one knows anything about my hard martyrdom. It is a secret that passes only between me, Jesus, and the holy divine volition. As for all others, no one knows anything, and in looking at me under the reign of the light of the Fiat, maybe they believe that I am the happiest of creatures. O power of the divine will! You know how to change things, and wherever you are present, you make everything appear as beautiful and good. Even more, with your light you bejewel the panes, and make them appear as rare and precious pearls that enclose seas of joy and of happiness within themselves. How ingenious you are, O divine will! Under your empire of light, one can do nothing but remain mute, love you, and follow you. But while my little mind was wandering within its light, and in the terrible nightmare of the privation of Jesus, I just barely felt him move in my interior, and he told me, "My daughter, courage, do not lose heart. The whole of heaven is fixed upon you, and by the irresistible force of my fiat, they feel such identification with you that they cannot do without looking at you, loving you, and concurring in all your acts. You must know that the angels, the saints, the sovereign queen are all one piece. Their beings are nothing other than one single act of divine will. Therefore nothing but divine will appears in each of them. The thought, the gaze, the word, the work, the step. Nothing appears but fiat, fiat. And this constitutes all the fullness of the happiness of all the saints. Now one who does and lives in my will on earth is similar to the inhabitants of heaven. That is, she is all one piece, and forms one single piece with them, in such a way that if the pilgrim soul thinks, the saints think together with her. If she loves, if she operates, they love and operate with her. There are such tight bonds between her and heaven that altogether form one single act of my will. So much so that all celestial inhabitants are on the lookout to see what the creature on earth does, so that nothing may escape them. Wherever my divine will reigns, it has its heaven, and has the virtue of kidnapping heaven onto earth, and the earth into heaven, and of forming one single thing. Therefore, courage, do not lose heart. Think that you are dealing with a divine will, and this should make you content. End of February 3rd. Fiat.